Hello and welcome once again to the How Long to Beat podcast. As always, I am Rick. You are Alex. Hello, Alex.
Yes, I am Alex.
And you are Paula. Say hello, Paula.
Hello.
Try something a little bit different. I feel like if someone jumps in now, I'm just like, here's Alex and Paula, and they're going to have to wait 15 minutes to know who's who. But I know most of you have been here for a long time, and you all know how this goes. We're going to talk about what we've beaten, retired, and played. We're going to crack on to our topic, which is series we should like, but for whatever reason don't. And then we're going to finish with the brand new, but not so new now, because we've already done one cycle of it, version of
How long
How
to
long
beat
to beat
the
the
game.
game?
Oh, wow, that was shite.
Again, you just gotta wait for the recording.
It has. It's to give you guys a bit of a clue in before we get there. Last week we did finish the first round of the new format of How Long to Beat the Game, which was won by yours truly. I am still deciding what fresh pain I'm going to inflict upon my co-hosts, i.e., what month is going to be my month as a reward. But we are starting from 000 when we play this week. I haven't got a good segue, but I am going to jump in with what I've beaten. Have either of you played the Stanley Parable before I jump in?
No, I've heard of it,
I
but I've never.
haven't, but I've seen some gameplay of it.
Okay, interesting. So, for anyone who's listening and doesn't know, the Stanley Parable is a source game from about a decade ago. Very narrative focused, very meta. I don't want to say any more because to spoil this game is to ruin, I think, one of the quintessential gaming experiences of the past decade. I really do think it's that good and that important to gaming. The devs have been working for a few years on I want to say, Unreal port of the original game with enhancements and new stuff. And I played it. It's one of the two games I beat in the past couple of weeks. Now, if, like my co-host, you have not played it, this is the way to play it. It looks like you would have remembered playing it originally. It's all been touched up. It's all lovely. No problems, no bugs, no anything that I encountered. And there's a little bit of extra content there. It is more or less content complete from the previous version. I think there are a couple of minor changes, but nothing you'd notice unless you were actively looking for it. The rub is that I'd already played it. And if you're someone who played the original, even with the very generous discount that they gave to people who owned the existing version, I just don't think it's worth playing again. What they add is not insignificant, but it doesn't really feel like enough. So I actually ended up refunding the game. I played the first hour. I was like, I've just bought the same game a second time, so I got rid. And that's not to say that it isn't a fantastic game. It really, really is. But if you've already played it, this doesn't need a second purchase. You don't need to go at it again, unless you would like to play it on Switch or PlayStation or Xbox, because the port is playable on all those systems. And I think actually playing it on Switch could be pretty fun. I think it's quite a good game to sort of curl up in bed with on a Steam Deck or a Switch and just experience. There's no Twitch controls. You don't really need to be precise in any way to do it. I think it's quite well suited to that kind of experience. And I would really, really encourage both of you to seek it out, because I think you'd both get a massive kick out of it.
Yeah.
The other game.
Oh, may I add
no, go
something
ahead.
before?
Hmm?
For those who are yet to play it and want to play it, remember to get the Wrong Closet ending.
Yes, yes. And also check out their Twitter, because they have put a couple of memes in there that they couldn't actually get onto the game itself for copyright and other reasons. But their Twitter is a good fun place to be. But yeah, no, definitely both play that. I think you especially, Alex, would get a kick out of it, but both of you, it's absolutely the kind of thing you should be.
Yeah, is this game on Game Pass? I feel like
if it is, then that is absolutely the way to go, because it's pretty short. There's lots and lots of endings. A single run and maybe take you 5 to 15 minutes, depending on which ending you go for.
Yeah, this one is on my backlog, and
maybe it is.
I actually is on the. I stole this game from my boyfriend backlog, so there you go.
The other thing I'd say as well with this, because I've known some people who've sort of said, "Oh, I'll just watch it on YouTube," kind of thing. Without spoiling anything, the game is very, very reactive. And although it is a narrative experience, I think you do lose a lot from not manually playing the game. I don't think it's well suited to that. By contrast to some other games we've talked about where we have said just watch it on YouTube. Earthbound comes to mind when Alex played that a little while back. Speaking of games Alex has played, one you've retired, actually, I found out recently, or was
Yes.
reminded recently. My other completion, which again, doubly ironically, was bought for me by Alex, is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. Or was it one of you bought it
I
for me
think
anyway?
Paula got this one for you.
Might have been Paula. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of you. I love you both equally. And I liked but did not love this game. Again, a little bit of context. It was a kickstarted game. It was backed and created by a man called Koji Igarashi, who was instrumental in the development of like 2D Castlevania, from Symphony of the Night all the way through to Order of Ecclesia, I believe. This is a Castlevania game in all but name. Does all the same things. There is a hidden optional boss that is basically one of the Belmonts, and has all of those moves and gives you. Is it the no? Which classic side weapon is it that like goes forth and spinny thing and comes back? Is it the cross?
Oh shit. Yeah.
Whichever
Oh,
one that is, it
I
gives
think
you
it
an
is the
attack that
cross.
is just like that. You get the same axe throw attack should you choose to equip it. This game is just packed to the brim with stuff. I think slightly to its detriment. I know that you've mentioned, Alex, in previous conversations, that the amount of crafting and grinding and looting and all those kinds of things put you off quite a lot.
Yeah.
For the most part, I have to say I didn't mind that too much. I think if I was more of a completionist, it might have bothered me. Um, there is one caveat to that, and that is that to complete the game, i.e., complete the game properly, because you can beat the game in about 6 hours and get a game over screen,
Yeah.
instead of a proper ending. But to get the actual ending, you are required to either accidentally or instinctively know to, or as I did, go and find a guide to tell you to attack a certain enemy repeatedly until it gives you an ability that you need to progress. It's not really signposted. There are 3 or 4 instances, not like that, but similar to that, where it's just not obvious what you need to do. Um, I actually resorted to a guide for a good few portions of this game where I got stuck. And I'm a fan of Metroidvanias. I'm not averse to moving around the map and trying to find things, but there are some things that really were moon logic, in terms of what was required of you as the player, to intuit and guess and work out. Which is a shame because actually I found myself liking the mechanics a lot. The
Mm.
story, it's nothing groundbreaking, but it was good enough. It was interesting. The world definitely doesn't live up to some of Iga's previous games, but it is really nice. It feels well put together. It all feels relatively cohesive. I suppose that brings me to my main problem with this. I fluctuated between like 7 and a 9,
Mm.
um, at various points in my playthrough. I ended up settling on an 8. Um, Again, we've talked about this before. For Metroidvanias, an 8 just isn't quite good enough, unfortunately. And beyond even that, with the exception of maybe Harmony of Dissonance, I wouldn't recommend this game over any of Iga's previous Castlevania games.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a problem
I,
because
I was gonna
it's a niche
say,
appeal. It's only people who've already played 6 or 7 other excellent games who might want to then go and play a slightly inferior version of those. And I fall firmly into that category, and I had a really good time with it, and I'm glad I played it, and I enjoyed the majority of the time I spent with it. But in terms of should you listening play this game, it's a tricky one. I would be more inclined to say go and start at R.I.P or Sorrow and go from there, and then see how you feel.
yeah, especially because those Game Boy games are like they're great, easy to get into, and now they're on the Switch, right? So it's like one of these
Yes,
things where I'm like, and I actually would really liken it to Harmony of Dissonance in its kind of um bullshittery in some ways. Like, of all the games, I started with Harmony of Dissonance, and that's a game that I firmly believe now is almost impossible to beat without a guide because it's just
it's a
um
little bit arcane. Yeah,
yeah, and it doesn't
Circle of the Moon
signpost very
can be a
well.
little bit like that as well, but yeah,
Aria of Sorrow, not at all. Like, that's a game you can go through and have a great time with, and it's like pretty much a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, this game is just kind of in that like between the Circle and Harmony area, and like, but worse for me at least, like, because at least those other ones felt better to control. I don't know. It's just, it was
and less
disappointing.
bloated.
And less bloated.
less
Yeah, this is a
yeah.
perfect example of Kickstarter going wrong, where like there's too much shit put into the game. It's like for the sake of it being there.
Yeah, and to give listeners a bit of context, there are 5 different shard systems that you can pick up. One of which is for familiars. So again, Symphony of the Night, just copy pasted. There is a cooking system. There is a crafting system. There are 3 different quest givers that give you various different kinds of quests.
Mhm.
It's just a bit of a mess. And then on top of all that, you find bookshelves around the world that tell you weapon-specific special moves.
Yeah.
I did not use those once because you don't need to. It's just a waste of everyone's time to kind of be in there. So yeah, if you're listening to this and you've looked at Bloodstained and you think it looks up your alley, play before you even contemplate it. Symphony of the Night, Aria of Sorrow, Dawn of Sorrow, Portrait of Ruin, Order of Ecclesia. In that order, all Stone Cold classics. And then if you loved those, maybe give yourself, a bit of time for a palate cleanser and then come back to Bloodstained.
Yeah.
Um,
Because
I
those are
liked it, but
games
it's
that
just
hold
hard
up so well. Like I've played Symphony of the Night just like a year or two ago, and like all that shit holds up really, really well.
I need to go back and play Order of Ecclesia. That's my absolute favorite. But they're all 10 out of 10s. They're all just all killer no filler, sort of 10 to 12 hours
Yeah.
perfection, or as close as you can expect to get to, all with their own differences and different sort of quirks that will keep it fresh as an extended play.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's what I played. Paula, you have nothing this week, do you?
I have nothing.
Imagine
Also,
having a
I've been
real life
like
doing other
looking at
things, honestly.
Bloodstained Ritual of the Night on my Steam list and thinking, hey, maybe I could be a rebel and just play it without playing everything you listed.
If you want.
I mean, listen, it's your life.
What
No one's going to
scares
stop
me
you.
is that if people jump onto that as a first, I think they're gonna hate these type of games. Like that's what worries me a bit. Is like it's just not a good example of it. Like I'm glad I started with the Castlevanias that are like classics because I love this type of game now. You know what I mean? Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe you'll enjoy it and then you'll be able to go play the other games that are better and be like, oh wow, these are so much better. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. I think my bigger worry
Maybe.
is that people play it, like it, get stuck and can't finish it, and just nope out of frustration.
Yeah.
Because there are a couple of times where, had I not thought, oh, I'll just Google it, I might have done the same.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What about you, Alex? You've got a few completions this week.
Yeah, I beat a bunch of stuff this week. First off, I beat
Big game of
Yakuza
the week.
Kiwami. I powered through this. Like I put it on easy and I powered through. And like I did like a little bit of I did some of the Majima Everywhere stuff, which is fucking hilarious. But man, I feel bad for anyone who like triple S'd that because you would have to fight Majima so many times. Like he is literally everywhere. Although he didn't really show up for me until like almost halfway through the game, I think, because I was powering through it so much that I think I kind of like I wasn't really going through Kamurocho all that much because I know Kamurocho like the back of my goddamn hand now. Like that map, I've played so many games with that map at this point because Judgment has it, then Kiwami has it, and like a Dragon is in a whole different area in Ninjincho. But like, anyway, so I knew it pretty well, and the story in this one, I actually think so. It's really disappointing compared to Zero, and that's mostly because it's the same story for um for Kazuma as it is in Zero in a way. Like it's not exactly the same, but a lot of the beats are very, very similar. Like even to like the big conclusion moment is like quite similar um to the first one. Although like, the new villain is I have to laugh though. Did I tell you guys about this? I don't know if I did. There's like a moment in it where like the villain. Okay, so the villain, before he becomes a villain, his hair is like kind of down, like sort of in front of his face, like kind of like a normal hairstyle. And then at one point he kills a dude, and he goes like, he like takes his hands and he like grabs his hair, and his hands are full of blood, and he like slicks his hair back, and he's like, "Now I'm a villain." It's just so
Oh my
fucking
god.
funny. I laughed so hard.
Mm.
I was like, this is so stupid. But I will say one thing. Yakuza 0 makes the villain in this like an actual human being because in this game, the kind of antagonist, who's not even really the antagonist in the end, is such a nobody. Like there's so little character development done. And listen, this was the very first Yakuza game, okay? This was like PS2 era. So like the story it's telling compared to games that were coming out at the time is pretty fun, right? So like I can't be too harsh on it, but I just have to say that like even though it's a remake, it definitely is showing its age in a way because you can tell that the series has really grown since this. And as someone who has played like Judgment now and has played the newest Yakuza and has played Yakuza 0, I'm like, wow, okay, they've really honed their art in this. And that going back, it's not unplayable by any means, but I would say like bump it down to easy, just like blast through it and you'll have fun. Like I had a good time. The fights were fun. The story was like engaging and interesting, but it's certainly not a highlight. And like I've heard Kiwami 2 is much better. And then it seems like the way they go, it's like Kiwami, it's like 0 is at the top. You've got Kiwami 2, 6, and then you've got like, 1, 3, 4, and 5 are kind of all mixed together in like they're pretty good, but some of them it's going to depend on your taste. So anyway, I'm excited to go through the rest, but yeah, that's Kiwami. So I don't recommend playing this first, not at all. I would 100% still say go with 0 first. In fact, I still think a great way of doing this is doing 0 Like a Dragon Judgment, because you're going to get like the best of the modern era and you'll still get enough of the story. Like you'll learn about most of the key players to get that. I mean, I might even argue if you really don't give a shit about the story, you could just do 0, 6 and then go along, because 6 is the end of Kirby's story, right? But I think you'd miss some important stuff. Anyway, that's Yakuza Kiwami. I also beat Remnant from the Ashes. This game is quite fun. Now, I will say, it actually reminded me a little bit of Outriders in the sense that, like, it's not gameplay wise, but like it's a good game. It's just kind of fine, and it scratches a real niche itch, where like this is. It's often labeled as Dark Souls with guns, which I laughed really hard because I sent to you guys these 2 reviews where like one person on How Long to Beat is like, what a unique, or hold on, I have to read it out because I think it's quite hilarious. Like these 2 come.
I remember exactly what you're talking
Yep.
about as well.
Yeah. So like the first review says, Remnant from the Ashes is, in all honesty, a breath of fresh air. A solid and alluring co-op action RPG with a good lot of innovations. Don't call it a Souls-like with guns. It's much more than that. Next review. Good Souls-like that adds guns to the gameplay. And I would actually say that second person is the correct one. It is a Souls-like with guns. That is what this game is. No, it doesn't do a whole lot that's more interesting. In fact, I would argue it does less that's interesting than Dark Souls. So it's basically like actually, you know what? Here, the newest review says nothing special about the game. It has okay graphics, okay gameplay, but overall, it's a primitive game with a Souls mechanic. Kind of accurate. It's like the way it works is you've got guns, you've got a roll, obviously. You have a melee that you can use. You have these dragon hearts that restore your health. You have mods that go into your guns. And you save at these, I don't even know what they're called. They're like shards that are basically the bonfires. The only thing it doesn't do that Dark Souls does, and that I'm glad it doesn't do, is you don't lose any experience when you die. So you don't have to go back and find yourself again. You just did. And you go back to that checkpoint, which sort of makes me wonder, why the fuck do you have checkpoints in the first place? But anyway, do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, do you understand why Dark Souls has these bonfires? Like, there's a reason. It's because when you hit those bonfires, you're like, oh, thank Christ, I can spend my skills, I can use my stuff, I'm good, I'm safe. But in this case, you're just kind of like, all right, there's a checkpoint. It's like, what? And I think the reason is because they have kind of drop-in co-op, which I didn't do, and I hear it's very fun. But you could tell this world is designed for co-op because it's randomized. So you never know what instances you're going to get. So like there's kind of a main story that you're going to travel through, but as you enter into each area, the game basically rolls and decides on certain side quests that you'll get to experience in this run, and some will be left out for you, which is a cool but stupid idea. So like, and the reason I say that is because like why would you gate me from your fucking content? Like, it's just I don't like that idea. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, so I can't go play it. But then at the same time, it's like, and it also means that none of the side quests are that interesting because it's basically just similar environments with a different objective, which I was like, that's kind of stupid. And I'm not a big fan of that. Now, like, if you're running through this game a bunch of times with friends or something and you're trying to do, but like, there's also different modes. So anyway, I don't love that concept. What I will say is, playing it on my computer, I had it all on ultra, so it looked very good. The worlds are really interesting because you go to all these different worlds, and the enemies are pretty cool. The enemies are all pretty similar, though. Like, you basically have your, grunts that run at you. You've got your standard, melee guys. You got standard ranged units, and then you'll have like, a special unit who maybe floats, and you'll have brutes, right? Like, that's basically it. And yeah, they have slight variations. Some will do poison damage, some will do radiation damage, some will do, I don't know, root rot, which is this thing. You know what I mean? Like, they all have certain things, but they all kind of follow a similar thing. So you enter into each one, you're like, yeah, okay, great, there's the melee one. Or you're like, oh, this world focuses more on ranged. Okay, cool. Like, you know what I mean? Also, I think I kind of broke it a little bit because, like, I found this armor when I was playing through called Leto's armor, kind of by accident, because like there's this thing you could, and it's a random instance, and this armor. So I didn't have a role anymore, but it didn't fucking matter because nothing could really kill me. The armor was so strong that like I could basically stand and down bosses, and I got to a point where I was like, well, why would I switch this armor out if it's this strong? So I never needed to use it. I almost never changed weapons, actually. Like, for most of the game, for the entire game, I used the repeater pistol they gave me because it's quite good. And I only ended up switching 2 times my large sidearm because I had started with the coach gun, was really good. Then I got a sniper rifle, which could one-shot enemies. And then it swapped to this like totally broken weapon, which on charge lets you revive. Yeah, fucking, I was like, well, okay, I win. So for a Souls, like, it was pretty easy, actually. Like, I didn't find it that challenging. The first bit of the game was challenging, but then after that, once I got that shit, I was like, well, this fucking game's easy now. And I barreled through the game at that point. And I was playing on normal difficulty. So anyway, I do recommend playing this game because I do think that it's good overall, and like the gunplay is fun. I would imagine that this game is significantly more fun with a friend. So if you've got a buddy who's like, I really want to play this, go ahead and do that. It has crossplay if you're playing this because it's leaving Game Pass, but by the time you listen to this, it's off Game Pass. So that's where I played it. Rick and I did try to do some co-op, but we realized that the crossplay with the Xbox version is literally PC and Xbox and not PC and Epic. I think you can crossplay with Steam, I think, maybe, but you can't do it with Epic. So Epic and Steam, I think, can anyway, you know how it is on PC. There's ways to do it, and I don't know what they are.
And we were on limited time, so we were like, let's just play some Risk of Rain.
Exactly. We're like, fuck it, Risk of Rain.
Yeah,
Here we go.
might as well.
Exactly right.
I was thinking this game sounded kind of familiar when you were talking about it. And there's a user that I follow that is Iron Pineapple that specializes in Souls-like. And he has a video on Remnant from the Ashes, and I highly recommend you go watch that.
Yeah? Okay. Can you link it, actually? Do you mind?
Yeah.
I was literally just about to type through as a link.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Because I'll definitely check it out. Yeah, it's just, it's a weird game.
Perfectly, the icon for that is Souls-like in text next to a guy in a helmet holding a pistol.
It's perfect.
Sorry, I cut you up there. What you saying?
No, it's good. Anyway, it's a fine game. It's fine. Fine TM. I'm glad I played it before it left Game Pass, though. I was like, haha, free game. So I also beat Kirby in the Forgotten Land. What a great game. It's just a great game. It's just very, very good. It's very beautiful. It's very pretty. It's very fun. It does get kind of hard. Like, not really, but you have to start thinking about what you're doing,
Hard for a Kirby game.
Yeah, but I will actually say, so it has this thing when you beat the game, there's this like post game that you could do which I am not a fan of, because it's basically like you have to collect. Let's just say there's this character whose like soul is lost or something, and it's spread out amongst like remixes of the levels, but more difficult. And in this kind of like reversed sort of dimension, and there's like 6 of the levels or so, and in each one you have to collect these orbs of soul, but you have to find all of them. And I don't like that kind of gameplay. Like, I don't like to have to find every single thing in a level in order to like move on and like finish something. I'm just like, oh no, I don't want to do that. And it's like a little more challenging, and then there's like lots of boss fights. I'm sure if you love Kirby, that post game is great. Like, I'm not like faulting the game for having a post game. I'm just like, oh, that's not for me. But the main game is fantastic. So like, maybe it's good for people to know that like, hey, if you really, really love Kirby, when you beat it, you get to do this really hard thing afterwards. And more hard in the sense of finding all this stuff. So anyway, 9 out of 10 for me easily. This is definitely the best Kirby game ever made. Like, it's very, 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 very good. And I would say I had just like a like pure joy the entire time. I think Tiamat mentioned like, yeah, he started playing the demo with his son. I think if you get this game, you'll have a very good time. And it's like, I think I played in like 12 some hours. Like, it's pretty solid for a platformer, So I recommend it if you have a Switch. And the last game that I've beaten, although I'm technically kind of still playing it, but I did beat it, is Monster Train. This game is so good. This is, okay, roguelike deck builder. Think Slay the Spire, but what is super cool about this game, what I love, is like essentially you're in hell. Hell has been frozen over by heaven, and you're on this train, and you're carrying what's called like the last shard of the pyre. And so the pyre is like what heats hell. And so you're on a mission to reheat hell, basically, and defeat heaven. And you've got the last piece. And so like the hordes of heaven are coming in to your train. And so you're in a train, and this train has 4 levels. The top level is your pyre, where you can't place any units. But the pyre has an attack value and health value, and so it can attack units that enter into its floor. Then you have 3 floors below where you can place units, and units will enter at the base level, and then they will move up each turn. And so you have to decimate the forces before they get to your pyre. And so you play your units with cards, and as you go along, you gain new cards, you upgrade cards. You get trinkets or like artifacts. Oh man, artifacts are so powerful because they give you permanent like buffs basically on your run. And you're basically going through, there's like 3 major bosses that you'll have to fight to beat a run. And you'll fight a number of battles on each. I think it's like 9 battles total with the bosses. I think you do 2 battles in each area. And then each area will also have a choice where you can branch off onto 2 paths. And 2 paths will have 3 instances basically that you can go through. Things like restoring health to your pyre, duplicating cards, removing cards, special events, upgrading unit cards, upgrading spell cards, getting random artifacts, things like this, like all sorts of stuff. What I really, really love about this game is that you can beat it in basically 3 hours. So like you will win a run quite quickly. And you can win most of your runs. Like, I actually would say that it's not all that punishing. Now, what it does that's really great is that once you win, it says, hey, do you want to try the Covenant rank? And so there's these 10 Covenant ranks that increase the difficulty, but also give you special cards and give you kind of bonuses throughout it. So it really, like, the best way I can kind of describe it is like, it basically has like those kind of, dopamine hitting mechanics that you would see in those like shitty, like games with microtransactions, but it has no microtransactions. So I'm like, I love this shit. I'm like, yeah, I want games to make me feel good when I play them. Like, I want to get that, beautiful like dopamine hit. And I'm like, but without it trying to like, force me to buy shit. I'm like, this is amazing. Like, it's just really fun and good. And it's wonderful too, because like all the cards you get, you can check to see like, okay, like you literally just hover over the card and it shows you what all of the, things that it has on it mean, which is so useful because it really allows you to learn like what the synergies are and like combinations and like, dude. So what's also great is like you basically set all your monsters, you play all your spell cards, and then when you end your turn, combat then auto plays between your units and the enemy units. And there's like 5 levels of speed that you can do this at, which I think is really awesome. So you can just click at the top, like, I want to speed this up. So you can get to a point where it just goes like, and it's done and the turn's over. And then you can just start again. And like that to me is like, because it's not super needed most of the time. But when you get to the boss fights, bosses are going to constantly go until either your units are dead or the boss is dead, which makes sense, right? Because they want to give you a chance because the bosses usually have a ton of health. So to speed that up a lot is really nice because you just go like, okay, now we're up to the next one. Just deal with the damage. I can't recommend this enough. It's on Game Pass, so like, fucking, what are you waiting for? You know, I would recommend, I think, playing it on PC because I just think it just feels good with a mouse. Because you know you're able to like move there's lots of buttons and what I'm sure it's fantastic on console and stuff too. Probably feels great on Switch. I played Slay the Spire on Switch, but yeah, it is different than Slay the Spire. I will say so. Like, it's not like a copy of that. It's a very different game. I love all the different cards units because it's kind of neat. You have different kind of clans of hell monsters, and so you'll pick a main one, and then you pick a backup. So like you always use 2 of them. So you've got your main person, and it'll be like you have a champion as well that can be upgraded as you go along. And then you'll pick one of the other groups, and they'll give you kind of your like set of backup cards. So there's lots of combinations you could do. I'm probably going to keep going because at this point I've beaten the game many times now, like 7 or 8 times I think, and with different combinations. And so I want to beat it with all the different combinations because they're really fun. And once you beat it, you unlock their like alternate champion, who's usually really cool and different. Yeah, it's just really good. And like there's like daily challenges and stuff, which I haven't gotten into yet, but I'm sure people are really dig. And I just think it's like one of those things where I'm like, I want to reward this because it's basically a game that's like, hey, you know, all that like predatory bullshit that you have to deal with in other games that really makes you want to play it. Like, we've got all that here, but we're not going to ask for your money. Like, it's just really nice. It's like, we'll ask for it once. And hey, we also have DLC with like a new, you know, character that's 10 CAD, which I'm like, fucking cool. That's a whole new deck, right? Like, I haven't bought it, but like I might at some point. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's very nice. They've done a very good thing here. Right. Anyway, that's it. Neither of you have played this game, right? I don't know if these are up your alley.
Heard about it though. Have heard things.
Yeah.
And speaking of sporting devs who do good things, Paula, Spore, a game you retired.
Well, so I suddenly got an itch to play Spore because I played this game like many years ago, and I never completed it because it crashed. And little old me here last night, I was playing Spore and I forgot that the game has a tendency to crash at random intervals.
Oh no.
So I was happily playing, creating my abomination of a creature, making friends in the world, and suddenly it crashed. And then I realized, hey, I haven't saved. And lo and behold, I loaded the game again, and there my save was gone. So
Gone completely.
gone completely.
Oh.
So yeah, fuck you, yeah. Fuck you, EA. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
I
Absolutely.
reverted to Spanish for a little bit. Like the game has this known issue for so long and it never got patched, so it's like, why? Just why? So yeah, I retired Spore and very heartbroken because I really wanted, I was really attached to my little species, which I called Steve because there's always place for a Steve.
That's absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
And yeah, so that's my very sad story from last night with Spore. The other retirement, which surprised me even me, is, I'm gonna butcher this, but it's Pixros. It's like Picross, but with an X instead of a Z. And I got this from a bundle in itch.io, and I was craving some Picross style puzzle, and suddenly I found it like already on my backlog, so it was like, why not? it isn't as satisfying as Picross. Like, and the other thing is that you can mark like with an X, like in you usually can mark with an X like on your little board where you think either there's no um there's no pixels in that place, so you mark it with an X. But if you mark it with an X with the ground place in Pixros, you lose one of your lives. And if you lose 3 lives, which I did by accident a couple of times because I was playing with a mouse, it doesn't have keyboard controls to my knowledge. You have to retry the level. And I was like, fuck that.
Oh, that's like so antithetical to Picross's whole philosophy, right? Like it's
Yeah.
enjoyable little puzzles. Ugh.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like enjoyable, relaxing little puzzles. But it was not in this case. So it was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna go play some maybe Murder by Numbers next time. So yeah, those are my 2 retirements. Quite disappointing. Rick, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, this would be a nice quick one. So I bought a very cheap little puzzle platformer game called Axolotl is Dry on Switch. I think I paid like 80 pence for it, something silly like that. I don't know if it's just the Switch version, but there is a bug that appeared about 10 levels in where when you jump, it just activates its dash on its own. It's a Celeste style setup, so it's precision platforming. You die, you immediately spawn back at the checkpoint kind of thing. Losing a dash when you jump makes the game impossible to play. And I couldn't be fucked, so I just deleted the game. Would not recommend based on my experience. Your mileage may vary, but I fear, Alex, it won't.
Yeah, so I retired F.E.A.R. I actually was playing with the mod with the HD textures, which look gorgeous, but I did notice that it was prone to crashing at that point once I did that. Which was fine. Like it because its autosave is like super generous, so like it didn't really bother me that much because it could load up in like 3 seconds, and I was like, whatever. It didn't do it very often once I started going, but kind of sucks. Like it's just this is an old shooter, right? And it's well before the era of like, you pull the gun up and you get to see through the sights. Like this is basically when you hold down your aim, the gun just kind of like moves a little closer to the center. Do you know what I mean? Like that aiming.
Yeah, and the game crops in a little bit,
A
kind of
little.
thing.
It's kind of that's it. And I
Yeah.
found it was kind of unwieldy. Like it didn't feel very good. And the enemy AI is like, I'm sure for the time, extremely good. And it's very good. But like you're also not really, you can't really go duck into cover that much. Like you can kind of crouch and like lean out a little bit, but like it's not like a cover shooter either. But you also really have to be in cover because you're gonna get fucked. And it's a lot of the like it's like the health packs and armor type of game. And I just like there's a slowdown option, but I'm not entirely sure how that helps me because like they're still shooting me real fast and I'm not moving faster. So it's just kind of like, oh, you've slowed down how I'm dying. So basically I'm just shit at the game. And I was like, I'm not gonna have any fun with this. Like I thought about, I guess I could drop the difficulty down, but I was like, I know I'm not gonna enjoy this. Like I know I'm only gonna slog through this. Like if you have more of a more kind of leeway for those older shooters and like you enjoy that a little bit more, you might have a fun time with this game. But I think it was more like a game where I was like I enjoy first person shooters only a bit at minimum, you know what I mean? Like they're like basically only okay for me in general. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna spend my time with this mediocre to okay no, I'm not gonna do that shit. So yeah, I got the whole collection for like a couple bucks basically, and I was like, oh, I'll try it out. But yeah, nah, I'm good. Maybe someday I'll come back, but that's wishful thinking. I know some people like this. I think it's kind of got like a cult
following. The whole series does.
but I don't know that much because even when I look on How Long to Beat, it doesn't have that high ratings in general. Like 79 is not bad, but you know what I mean? Like it's like most of the reviews I see recently are like in the 60 area. You know what I mean? And the only ones that are higher are like people who played it like 15 years ago. You know what I mean?
Not unusual, right? Though games are recontextualized by things that come after them.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm sure at the time it was wonderful, but this is a 360 shooter that I actually might enjoy this more in the 360. Probably, I feel like on PC maybe it's like bumped up even harder or some shit. But like, because in
With the
terms
aim.
of like the aiming, you know what I mean. Usually mouse and keyboard aiming, I'm like, that's what I'm all for. But it just didn't feel great. Anyway, that's enough about F.E.A.R. Another game that is super niche, and I learned I am not the niche, is One Step from Eden. I think I had a different conception of what this game was because I knew it was the Mega Man Battle Network style gameplay. I actually thought there might have been a little bit of story to this, but no, it's a roguelike, which I don't know how I never noted that. And it's this game is good, but I think this game was made for individuals who played and mastered Mega Man Battle Network when they were children and wanted something that was bullshit hard. And this is what this game is. It has no tutorial really to speak of. The tutorial that it does have is one of the worst tutorials I've ever played in a game, in terms of actually teaching you what to do. And this is something I've seen repeated by a lot of people. And I think it's a real shame because I can tell that underneath it, there's an interesting game here. But I also think that from what I'm seeing, progression gets locked really, like you have to do a lot to unlock. There's like all these characters and all this other stuff, and you just have to do too much. Where like a game like Monster Train really allows you to decide how difficult do you want this roguelike experience to be, and hands out a lot of upgrades pretty quickly. This game really holds you back in that sense, and it is frenetic, like honest to God, fucking frenetic, like to the point where some of the bosses are so fast that I felt like I was like, what? I don't even know what I'm doing right now. Like they're just like like all the time, and I'm like, how am I supposed to check what items I have in my fucking slot here if I can't, like I have to spend the entire time moving. I'm like, I can't, like I don't like that type of roguelike. Like if we're dealing with a card game, because this is really what it is, it's a card game, but you can't, I don't know how to learn. Maybe it's different on PC, but like on Switch, I was like, well, how do I know what the effects of this spell are? Like it shows me a little example of how it'll play out, but I can't learn what they are. And if I hadn't played Monster Train, some of the terms I might not have even known because it uses similar terms from some other roguelikes. But I was like, how am I supposed to know what this particular thing even means? Like what does it even mean? I can't see, is there an encyclopedia entry on this that I could check? No. Okay, so I'm just gonna grab random fucking cards and hope they work, like, you know. And then it's like, okay, so then where does this one move? Oh, okay, there's this little dot, and I'm like, and it says, oh, you could upgrade them, and I was like, what does upgrading even do? And like how do I get the abilities to upgrade? What are all these dots on the fucking map? What do they mean? Oh, you're not going to tell me what any of them fucking mean? Okay, that's awfully fucking rude. So I'm just like, it won't even like give you a preview of what the hell this shit is. It's just like, well, this is an exclamation mark. Well, what does that mean? Exclamation mark. Huh? Like, I'm just like, a little bit of clarity would be nice. Really, 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 really disappointing, I have to say. Like, I just think that, and disappointing because there's probably great game here that they've buried under inaccessibility. You know, it's just not accessible, and like, I don't see how it would hurt to give more explanation of things, or to give like a tutorial run that can be optional even, you know. Could be fine. Make it optional. Make it a little more hand-holdy. Allow people into your game to enjoy your game. But at this point, I can't recommend it because it feels a lot like it was designed for one niche crowd, and then said fuck it to anyone else. Which, like, that's your prerogative, you know. Like, you could do that. Fucking go ahead, like, you know. But I think you miss out on a lot of potential players. And really, I don't think they'd have to compromise at all their game to do so. You know what I mean? Like, even if they offered these kind of like increasing levels of complexity, which like games like Monster Train, Say the Spire and stuff do, right? Where they add on like, okay, now you can play it where it's a little more difficult. Would have made more sense to me. It feels a little bit like if Monster Train, like you're entering in on like Covenant 5 or something, like halfway through the most difficult levels is where you start in One Step Forbidden. Which if everything I'm saying, you're just like, oh shit, like a really fast, really complex Mega Man Battle Network sounds like your kind of game. Like, yeah, you're gonna have a fucking blast here. Like I said, the core stuff is solid. It's just if you don't have experience with that, you're going to have a really, really hard time coming into this game, I think. Which is just honestly a shame. I don't regret buying it because, I don't mind supporting indie devs, but I also got it on sale, so whatever. But yeah, I just wish they would have had a little more onboarding. But anyway, because Rick, have you tried this one? I know you mentioned this one, but
I have not. It's one I've had on my radar because the Battle Network games have always looked really, really cool to me. However, never played them, never touched them. So
yeah,
it's one I've got wishlisted, thinking I'm jumping in. But all the things you're saying are telling me maybe I should whack like Battle Network 4 or something on my Game Boy Advance and find out there first.
this is what I'm thinking. Like, I've had the Battle Network games on my Game Boy and my GBA, so I'm like, I think I'm just gonna go play those because, like, I remember starting one on my old one before it got corrupted, but I didn't get very far, and I really enjoyed what I had played thus far. They're just like a bit slower and give you a little more time to consider. And look, guys, I ain't getting any younger. I need time. Let me take a moment to think. That's why I love tactical RPGs. I like to strategize, I'm not necessarily a huge on the action, like, think right away kind of games, though those are very fun. Anyway, Paula, yeah, you haven't touched this one, right?
No, at all. No.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know if you'd enjoy it. Let's move on then to what we're playing. Speaking of that, Paula, what are you playing?
Well, I'm still playing Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes with my boyfriend, and we defused a couple power bombs last night. And one of them, it was like, you have one strike. If you fail one time on this bomb, you're out. We fell once at that bomb, and then never again. The one bomb that gave us a lot of pain was the one that has 8 minutes and 8 modules. And oh my god, we have to do that bomb so many times because we kept getting like very, like, I guess, modules that took too long to defuse. So when we got to the last module, it just exploded on us. But finally, we got a lucky bomb, and we defused it with 2 minutes still on the clock, which
Beautiful.
made us very happy.
Nice.
So yeah, like it was quite stressful, but it was still very fun. We haven't gotten to the needy modules, which I'm worried about.
You should be.
I want to cry. So yeah, that's what we've been doing in Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. On the other hand, we've been training some teams for Pokemon Shining Pearl because we decided we wanted to have like a couple of battle teams to just have fun. And I finished mine the other day. He still is trying to find a Shroomish, which, by the way, if anyone listening to this podcast is playing Pokemon Shining Pearl or Brilliant Diamond and has a Shroomish, please contact me. I need it. We haven't found one because it's one of the random encounters on the Great March that is like a safari zone. And we haven't found one in neither of our games. And I even asked my nephew for help, and he didn't find any Shroomish neither. So we're getting desperate here.
Sadly, I don't think I found one either, so.
Yeah, sadly. But yeah, that's I'm so happy I tried my team for Pokemon Shining Pearl because I have a monster of a Togekiss because it has an ability that lets it have a higher percentage of it triggering the secondary effect of an attack. So, for example, if you use flamethrower and it has a 10% chance to burn, now it has, I don't know, like a 15% chance of burning. Just to name an example. And the other thing that almost drove me crazy, like up to the wall crazy, was that I had to look for a Kingstruck, which is an item which is usually used to evolve like a couple of Pokemon with trading, but it has a percent, like if you give it to a Pokemon in a battle, it gives any attack that doesn't normally have a chance to make the other Pokemon flinch, have the chance to make the other Pokemon flinch. So that pair with Searing Rays is kind of disgusting, not gonna lie. So I had to catch so many Poliwhirls because you don't have like, it's one of those items that you can get like in like for free, like lie on the ground or like buy it or like exchange it for battle points or anything like that. You have to find a Poliwhirl with the item, and that is a 5% chance of it happening. So yeah, I have like an entire box of Poliwhirl on my PC, so I'm gonna probably exchange that on Wonder Trade. And hopefully, oh, speaking of Wonder Trade, I don't know how my sister lets me talk to my nephew anymore, because every time I arrive with something new for him, he gets obsessed, and his latest obsession is Wonder Trade. So yeah, I'm sorry, sister, if you're listening to this. And I don't know who is giving out potentially hacked shiny Pokemon in Wonder Trade, but I got 3 of them. So lucky me. So yeah. And it was funny because I was just telling my nephew, like, no, shiny Pokemon are really, really, really rare, and people don't usually give them away. So, oh, never mind. I just got a shiny, what was it? A shiny Infernape. Well, never mind. So so now he is convinced that if he keeps Wonder Trading, he will get a shiny Pokemon eventually. So I am sorry, that's gonna take a while. Because it took me a while too. Unless he
Just
gets
spend
real
all
lucky.
day doing this shit. Nice.
Yep. He spent like the entirety of just the day just Wonder Trading, so I'm sorry. And finally, on a lighter note, I'm playing Variable Barricade, and I finished another route, which was Nayuta's route. That is um the very energetic and very dense and very not the sharpest tool in the shed kind of character. And it was so funny. Like, the route was stupidly funny because the character was so dense that not only he didn't like realize the feelings of the protagonist, but he also didn't like realize what his own feelings were. So the other 3 were having a blast just teasing him about it, which led to very, very hilarious scenes. And I'm more okay with this kind of like stupid drama than whatever was on the on Shion's route, which was like more like angst and drama, and here was just like stupidity and drama. So I'm all in for it. And I started another route, which is still, it's already like going like funny places because of how everything is set up, which I don't think anyone here like listening is playing Variable Barricade, so I'm just gonna up and say it. Like
Probably not.
the
Nope.
yeah, like the protagonist Hibari's grandfather uh pretty much like planted a mole or like an informer among the the suitors or the bachelors, however you want to call them. and he's not supposed to be like a formal bachelor, but more like he's informing everything that's happening to Hibari's grandfather. And well, the cat was out of the bag real quick in his route, so Hibari like started like just relying on him to get the other guys off her back whenever possible, which led to very like hilarious scenes, which was like, oh, Hibari, why don't you like try this dessert, which was like a chimera of a dessert that you probably shouldn't eat because it will kick you into a sugar rush or something like that. And Hibari was like, oh, Taiga, why don't you taste this instead? And then it was like, oh, Kiwami, why don't we go like play outside or something like that? Oh, Taiga said he wanted some exercise, right? Right? And he threw him into the lion pen pretty much. Or it was like, oh right, one of my friends who is a designer sent this dress, but I think it's gonna look better on you, Hibari. Oh no, Taiga will, yep, he will probably look great in a dress. So and she just kept like throwing the poor boy like into these stupid situations, and just it was dumb. It was funny. I hope like the road has more of this because it genuinely cracks me up every time, and it feels more like on the prior routes it was like, oh, um this was like more like um Hibari being like stubborn to Hibari realizing her feelings. The second route was like, oh, this is more like the other guy being stupid, and it was more of a situation from bodyguard and master to lovers. And this one is more like it feels more like friends to lovers, which I really dig. So yeah, and I'm not gonna gush about this game more today because I'm gonna probably still be gushing about this route like next week. So take it away, someone, please help me.
I'll
You want to
jump
go,
in.
Rick? Yeah.
To be fair, most of my stuff pretty similar to last time in terms of what I'm playing. One big change, I went full normie and started playing FIFA 22.
Well,
Um,
why?
I know it was on PS Plus this month, so
Mm.
I haven't bought a PS. I haven't bought a FIFA game in a couple of years. Figured if it was free, I might as well. And I fell into that career mode rabbit hole real bad. Always happens. So I'm most of the way through my first season as Venezia in the Italian league. That's been really fun. I always sign loads of like young players with big potential and just play them. It's been really good. I won't bore you guys anymore with that. Still playing Risk of Rain 2. Really, really pushing hard for the Void stuff. It's still kicking our ass, myself and anyone that I'm playing with. Mostly my brother. I've played a bit more with Alex and Paula and a couple of the other friends of the podcast that we've mentioned in previous times. It's just really, really tricky. And I think it's going to be a little while before we find our way to get the alternate ending. Still loving the Railgunner, who's the first of the new characters. She is excellent. I've unlocked some of the alternate loadout abilities for her. There's one that's got like a freeze effect that's been really, really powerful. Not powerful enough yet, but same as we said previous times, it's a wonderful game and well worth playing for anyone who likes roguelikes, third-person shooters, or fun. Um, The Witcher is still a game I'm playing. Slow progress on that, but now I finished Bloodstained. Hopefully, I can plug a bit more into that. Ditto Days Gone, still playing, but barely made any movement on that recently. Partners in Time, the Mario and Luigi RPG. I'm about, I think, halfway through this one. It's lots of fun, but it's way too easy. I've kind of gotten to the point now where I don't even really need to try to win battles, boss or otherwise. The only thing that's really
Mm.
maintaining my interest is that active component of the combat, and I think that really is saving it a little bit. You know, it's still an excellent time, but it's a little bit mindless, which isn't ideal. So I found myself more and more putting YouTube videos and podcasts on in the background when I'm playing it. I had a big train journey last week, so I put some music in and cracked on with it when I did that. Really good for that, and you know, still a great game. It's just doesn't live up to Superstar Saga. And I have to say as well, the baby mechanics, still kind of on the fence about them. They do open up a lot of alternative options, things that you can do. They also complicate things a little bit too much for my liking, so it's kind of a give and a take situation. I think I would still recommend it as it stands. That might change. We'll see how it goes. I expect to finish this in the next week or two, really. Still dipping in and out of part-time UFO. It's a perfect game for that. But not a lot because I've started playing another game on Switch. This is a roguelike called Going Under. Love this. It's really, really fun. So the concept is you are a intern working for a small startup called Fizzle. And you find out when you get there that instead of marketing, which is what you thought you'd signed up for, you are going to be dungeon clearing because whenever a startup fails, it goes under literally, i.e., it goes underground and becomes a dungeon that needs to be cleared out so that it doesn't overwhelm the startup above it. So what that actually entails is you going into dungeons, picking up keyboards, pickaxes, whatever you happen to find down there, and making your way through the dungeon. The game has got so much charm, plays really nicely, but is actually quite difficult. Sometimes slightly unfairly, I feel. Whether that's just me getting used to it, whether that's some wind-up animations not quite being what they could be. Nevertheless, throughout, there's lots of little things to keep you going in between. I think for certain roguelikes, that's imperative that as well as the overarching clear this dungeon and progress, you also have little micro objectives to play with in the meantime. So the way that manifests in Going Under, you have 5 or 6 mentors. They are other people that work at Fizzle. You can equip one at the start of each level. They give you various things, whether that's shoplifting a random item every time you go to a shop, whether that's buying things you can't afford, and then carrying around like a little debt ball and chain until you clear that debt, whether that's random explosives just popping into the level. And each of those different mentors will give you persistent objectives that when you complete them unlock further things to take into new runs. There's lots of little things like that where you're constantly making progress even if a run turns out to be a dud. I really like it, and I have to say, a little bit of sort of background. I've owned this game on PC for about a year, played the first hour of it, loved it, never came back to it. On Switch, I feel like it really is perfect because a successful run through a dungeon is only about 20-25 minutes. It's very well suited to that kind of pick it up, play a run, put it down kind of thing. I can see myself, however, playing it again on PC. I'm enjoying it that much. It is really, really compelling, and PC, Switch, wherever you want to play it, I think it's well worth a look.
It's on Game
For
Pass
any
too.
in action games, it feels. Sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, sorry, it's on Game Pass as well.
Oh, doubly so. Yeah, definitely give that a go. I think it really strikes a nice balance with the roguelike type stuff, but also actually being mechanically really sound and having quite a fun story as well, which roguelikes don't always achieve. This is oddly story focused in the best possible way. And then finally, I'm still playing that little Android puzzle I mentioned last week, Dot Project. Well, 2 weeks ago, based on recordings, but last time we recorded a regular episode, Dot Project. Still good fun. Still plugging away at it, a couple of levels at a time. Would absolutely still recommend that for like £1.50, which is the entry price. Alex, see us out. What else have you been playing this week?
Yeah, I've been playing a bunch of stuff that's very, very fun. So, yeah, I've had a good gaming week this last week. I'm just doing my work in the evenings and playing my games in the day. So I started playing Lost Judgment. I'm not super far into it, but I have to say, just from the start, I'm actually doing it in English this time. I might switch back to Japanese at one point, but the English is quite good. Like they did a really good job at matching voices that feel like they match the characters. And also, I kind of didn't want to have to focus 100%. I was sort of like looking forward to being like, oh, I can kind of, because now that I have Molly around, like my little dog, sometimes I need to be able to play a game if it's on my Xbox that I don't have to fully pay full attention all the time because I'm going to have to, throw a ball a few times or keep her occupied. So I think I'm going to do this thing where like when she's asleep, I might pop it into Japanese and when she's awake, English. But you're in Ijin show for this one for most of it, which is really nice. And I'm starting to see how I'm like, oh, they've got a great thing going here because they can do, they can create new maps for their Yakuza series now, their RPG series, and then they can use those as well in the Brawler series and in Judgment. And I'm like, this is a brilliant mix here. I also got the Kaito files because I was like, I'm going to pay full price for you guys because I've played so many of your games for free now or for such ridiculous discounts that I will happily give you some money because they're doing great shit. And Lost Judgment so far feels like it's just an upgrade on Judgment, honestly. Like they just fixed stuff. You got a skateboard that you can just run around, like go around town on. That's awesome. And you could grind rails. I was like, dope. You're still like way too cool for school. But this one actually, it involves, it's pretty serious shit. Like it's like about like suicide and bullying basically is like what the story deals around. And so like the school's hiring you to like figure out what's going on at the school. So some people have said, like, at first I thought I was like, oh, because I'd read and some people were like, oh yeah, you're like in a school for this one. But like, it starts off with a bang. Like the opening moments of this game, like the lead up, you're like, holy shit, that's what this game's about. And it's I'm just saying, it's pretty cool. Like they've got a cool story going here. So I'm really excited to keep going. The combat is still so excellent, and it is just gorgeous on the Series X. Like it is beautiful. You can really tell like their new engine that they've been using since I think 0 or whatever, but like, or at least with the Yakuza 7 as well. Like it is really, really incredible stuff. Some of the best character models I've ever seen. Of course, all of their henchmen all still look basically the same, but I can't describe it, but there is a look to their henchmen that if you played a Yakuza game, like, what I'm talking about. Like, you always know, and you're like, oh, he's a guy I'm going to beat the shit out of. Because you're like, you see them and you're like, you're not a main character. You can just tell you're fodder. But anyway, I really love Lost Judgment. Again, it's an action RPG. And, I will also say that they've really fixed a lot of the issues that I had. Like, tailing makes more sense now, where it's like people aren't just like naturally suspicious of you, or if they are, there's a reason, and you can like blend in. So like they've created a button where like people turn around, you can just be like on your phone, like, oh, I'm just looking at stuff, whatever. Like you don't have to necessarily hide from them. You can just blend into the scenery, which I was like, that makes more sense. Like it basically seems like they heard what people said about the first game and are like, okay, we got it, we'll fix this up. And that to me just feels like, it makes me feel so much more confident in what they'll do next with the series as well, right? Like they really seem to always want to just improve on what they're doing, but then tell a crazier story as they go along. And I'm like, I love that shit. It's great. So that's Lost Judgment. I'm also playing a game called Wildermyth or Wildermyth. This game is holy shit. Like, first off, I don't know how the fuck they did this. So it's, how do I describe this? It's a tactical RPG, but it's almost all kind of, it's like a procedurally kind of generated story, sort of, but not like, okay. So basically you have multiple campaigns. It's almost like D&D in some ways, but like you have these heroes, and the heroes, they're not fixed, but your heroes can die and then they're gone. And somehow the story just stays as if it never, I don't know how they did this. Like the writing is so consistent and there's so much stuff that can happen. And basically the way it works is like you'll play as like a generation, and then like obviously that generation will just die eventually. And so you'll start a new chapter with like new people who might be like the children of your characters. But like, I guess it depends, because if all your people die, then maybe they aren't the children of your character. Like, so, and like you have this map where like you go along, and so there's like some resource management stuff to it as well, because like you're capturing areas and like you're fighting off these enemies in the tactical battles, but then you have all these decisions that you can make. Like in mine, one of my characters, and I also love this, very queer friendly. I'm like, fuck yeah, right away. It was like 2 dudes, and like it was like, you decide to go help your friend, and it's like, okay, are you doing this for friendship, rivalry, or romance? And I was like, romance, hell yeah. So my 2 dudes are in love, and I was like, this is great. But then he got like this like gem thing over his eye, and he's like slowly turning into like a gem creature. Anyway, there's all this shit in it, and it is like, You gotta play this game. It's criminally underplayed. Like I was looking on How Long to Beat. There's hardly anyone who's fucking logged this game, and it's one of the best games I think I've ever played in my life. I'm like, this is at least one of the most creative games I've ever played in my life. Like it is just like on Wildermyth right now, it's something like 38 have beat it. It's got like a solid 82 here. The art style is like, so I'll say this: the art style can be like a little like, yeah, like some people might not love it, but like I get why they've done it this way because it's very variable and like you can like change a lot of stuff with them. And it works well because within their cutscenes, it's kind of comic book style. And I think that if you just look at the art style on like a screenshot, you'll be a little like, huh? But then when you play it, it looks really beautiful in motion.
And it's worth saying the game looks like it's found a niche. Like there's 11 and a
Mhm.
bit thousand reviews on Steam, overwhelmingly positive.
Yes.
So even if it hasn't found a niche within HLTB, it's
Yeah.
definitely found an audience, which is always good.
Well, I put it this way: like the first review that you see on how it is, the game should have been triple the price. The devs are selling themselves way too short, and I agree. Honest to God, it's like a budget price, and I was like, this could have been a
£20,
fucking AAA release easily. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it's really, really, really cool. I love tactical RPGs, right? Like I'm such a fan of that genre, and so I can't recommend this game enough. Like people should really try it out. Speaking of that, I've been playing all bangers this week, by the way. I've just having a great time. So I also played because I got I didn't talk about it in our beaten yet because I'll be talking about this book a lot, I think, over the next few months. It's Region Locked by the Did You Know Gaming guys.
They made a book.
They made a book,
Ooh.
yeah, because they have their
Ooh.
series, and their series is great. But like, I love having the physical things because I it's just better to look through it. And some of the games that they feature in the book, they've never done videos on because they're just like some of them. They're like some of them are kind of hard to make a video on. And especially because like I love in one part they're like to be real with you guys, we never made a video on this one because it's so balls hard we can't get enough footage. I was like, I love that shit. That's great because some of these games are tough. But the concept of Region Locked is games that never made it to America, basically, because they're based in the UK. So they'll also talk about some games that were just only released in the UK, but the vast majority are Japanese games that just never got localized. And it makes sense why a lot of games don't get localized, especially back in the day. Nowadays, it doesn't make as much sense because digitally it's easier to release. But, before the advent of digital games, you had to think about creating cartridges, right? Or CDs and shit and like actually physically manufacture and send them off. And that's a lot. But the one game that I'm talking about here is called Bushi Seiryuuden Futari no Yuusha, which is Warriors, The Legend of the Blue Dragon, the two heroes. And believe it or not, this is one of Game Freak's first games. It was made in 1997. It was first, Enix was going to be the one to publish it first, but they didn't really like where it was going. And so they eventually just said like, all right, no thanks. And this publisher called T&E Soft is the one who ends up publishing it. And they weren't a very big company. But the game itself is absolutely gorgeous because it was designed by the the artist for Pokemon. So Ken Sugimori and Motofumi Fujiwara worked on the titles, and they were also Pokemon artists. And then the Pokemon composer Junichi Masuda also worked on the game's soundtrack. And it was released like kind of just after it. And a lot of the actual artwork, like if you go look at the artwork, you're like, oh yeah, that looks like Pokemon artwork because it's very much in that style. And it is absolutely beautiful. It has really unique gameplay to it. So the translation, by the way, only came out in March of 2021. So this is like straight up was lost for ages. And this is not one of those games where like, oh, if you didn't know Japanese, no, you have to fucking have known Japanese to play this game because there's lots of dialogue within it. But what's really neat about it is so you play in this top-down perspective as you're going over this overworld. But what's really cool is that when you enter into houses, instead of just like entering into the house and like walking around seeing sprites, you enter into this like first person perspective and you get to see these full like anime drawings of people, which makes them feel way more real. And so you can talk to them and you can move along the house and check things and take a look, which is really nice. And then you have battles that are on the overworld. You'll see your enemies, and the enemies actually move as you move, and they'll kind of track towards you. And when you can hit them to start combat, and when you start combat, you enter into a side-scrolling plane. Now, what's really cool about this is that it's actually semi-turn based in the sense that as you enter into this side-scrolling sphere, every move you make initiates a turn. But if you stand still, your enemies won't move. They move as you move and as you do combat. And they can fuck you up so fast. So, like, it is very much chess. You have like a shield spell that you can use that you really are going to want to use, because if they hit you, they take a lot of damage, and you only can restore health at these kind of bells. So you're really trying to preserve your health. And the game challenges you to complete each mission in a certain amount of turns to get what's called like Magatama, which can be used to destroy this like kind of big final thing that you'll do in the end. But the battles are really like, they're tense and exciting because you're like, okay, how do I get through this in like the most efficient way possible? And you have this little monster companion who can lift you up, but they can only lift you like basically your full height, and then they can move you about 3 squares, but you're too heavy, so they drop you. So that's how you can maneuver. But that little character can also be upgraded as you go along in these different like wells and whatnot, and get new powers. So like currently mine only has 1 power, which is to go and fight enemies. But the thing is, if you send them to fight enemies, they are going to take like that enemy's health and damage to themselves. Now they restore their health after every encounter. But if you're not careful and you send them against too powerful of an enemy, they'll be like knocked out and you can't jump anymore. So you can basically fuck yourself in a battle if you're not careful. So you have to really consider that, which is why I'm playing it on the SNES Classic. So it's perfect because I've save state the shit out of it and rewinded everything. And I'm like, it's nice. But this is like, honestly, had this game come to the West, this would easily be a cult classic. Might have even been like, not even just cult, might have just been like a huge success here, because it's like really fucking good. Like it's just a really good game. Like I'm playing it and having a great time. I'm like 2-3 hours in, I think, at this point, and it's only like 12 or maybe 14, 15 hours. I'm not sure. It's something along those lines. It's not a super long game. And like I'm having an absolute blast so far. I do wonder if there's like, because like your sister gets captured by this big purple bird, and I'm like, is this a folklore thing in Japan? Because it's exactly like Wind Waker, you know?
Yeah,
And I'm like,
I was thinking about that.
yeah, like I was looking at it and I was like, it even kind of looks like the Wind Waker bird. I was like, this has to be a thing, right? Or is this just like an homage to this game? I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was pretty successful in Japan. It's 25 years old now, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, if you love SNES games, you should 100% check this out. There's a translation out now. You can easily find it patched with the translation.
I easily found it literally while Alex was talking.
Yeah, there you go. And like I said, it's just honestly, it's just really good. Like that's all I can say about it. There's one musical track that does drive me a little crazy, because every time you come out onto the overworld, it'll start up and it's a little grating at the very beginning. But you also don't hear it all the time. For the most part, the music is quite wonderful. But anyway, there's that. So that's what I've been playing. Doing pretty good timing wise today. So we're gonna move on now to our topic for this week, which is basically, what's a game / series that should be perfect for you, but you've never been able to get into it? Because I think we all have had series sometimes where you're like, on paper, it sounds just like you're like, well, that's all the shit that I love. And then you get into it and you're like, turns out I either don't know myself that well or this game's bad.
I want to jump straight in because I think you guys probably know which one this is going to be from me. Ace Attorney.
Yeah, on paper that does sound like a game right for you.
Well, this is the thing, like strong narrative, puzzle solving, stupid silly humor, courtroom drama, perfect vibe on paper, but just the stupid, like inconsistent internal logic and some of the ways that you're kind of railroaded into the way that the developer wanted you to solve the puzzle. Like from a practical standpoint, I get it. from a do I want to play the game standpoint, I beat the first one. I played it on my
Mhm.
phone on an emulator. It's like cool. I tried it. I'm never going to play any of these ever again. And I love Danganronpa. Like I can vibe with this kind of game, not this series in particular. And I know you both love it, and that's okay
Yeah, it's so
because you're
weird. I know
allowed
because I know
to.
you love 999 as well and stuff, and I'm like, it does seem like a
Oh, they're
game that
wonderful.
you should just
Hero
be
escape
into.
games are
Yeah,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, it's so similar.
I have to say also, like, mainline 2D Mario, I tend not to vibe with.
Mm.
And, like, I do like platformers, particularly of the more sort of difficult variety. Super Meat Boy, that was my jam. Celeste, I really enjoyed when we played that for
Mm.
Book Club a little while back. The Game Boy Mario games, had a great time with, but, like, the NES and SNES ones, the new Super Marios,
Hmm.
And even some of the 3D ones a little bit. I like the 3DS one. Mario Galaxy kind of bored me. I haven't played Odyssey yet properly. I played a little bit on my brother's Switch, and I do have his copy on my shelf ready to come back to at some point. Yeah, Mario. I love the spin-offs. The main lines, hit or miss. What
Hmm.
about you two? Now that I've successfully burnt myself.
Paula, do you want to go first?
Um, yeah, for me it would be Genshin Impact because
Mm.
it is an open world game, not unlike Breath of the Wild, and it has a lot of exploration that I enjoyed for a while. And well, you can make a team and battle in a not unlike in Xenoblade Chronicles. And it sounds like it should be my thing, but just the fact that you can, I guess it's the microtransactions that just tick me off, and it's like, no, why? I like the the whole thing about like getting your characters in a gacha style manner instead of like having them gradually like join you in the story. It's the one thing that just drives me crazy, and it is sad because like there there's so many inconsistencies in the sense of you could talk to a specific character using that specific character because or get a specific character before you actually meet them, or just the amount of grind that the game has that I usually don't mind in RPGs or JRPGs, but here I do, and it just drives me crazy. And it's sad because there has been like a lot of events that go outside of the usual gameplay. Like there was like a tower defense event, and I had a lot of fun on it. But once the event is over, they take that away. I'm like, no, don't do this to me. or so yeah, that's I think the big one. And the other one would be, and this is gonna sound so weird, would be Fire Emblem Three Houses because I tried to get into that one and
I
I
still
just
don't understand
couldn't.
why you don't like that. It makes no sense to me, considering your gaming preferences. But yeah.
Yeah, like it might have been like a thing of that time, which I just wanted like a traditional Fire Emblem experience, which Three Houses is not. And maybe that put me off from enjoying the game, and I just dropped it after a couple of hours. But yeah, that's. I think that would be it, unless I remember something a little bit later.
Hmm. I've got a couple that are yeah. So like the first one for me is like Eco Shadow of the Colossus Last Guardian, like that
I'm with you.
combo. Yeah, like on paper they really sound like
More like
games that
Rico.
yeah, I
Sorry.
know, right? Sounds like games
Go
that
on.
I should enjoy. They're like interesting art pieces with compelling narratives and unique gameplay. But every time I've tried, I just bounce off so fast. Like they just never seem to grasp me. And I think I know what part of it. So like Eco, I think I only tried like, and I was like, I don't give a fuck. But like Shadow of the Colossus, I think the problem with that game for me too is that you kind of had to be there, like it was, I think, revolutionary for its time. And like when it came out, it became such an important game for people to play and learn about. And it's been so discussed now that like I don't know if I will get anything out of playing it, Like I imagine had I not known a lot about the game, maybe I would have persevered a little more, but where it's been so discussed ad nauseum, I just kind of find nothing kind of pulling me forward through it. Um I think of all of the games, mechanically it's the most interesting of them. Um because you are getting to, the climbing the giant beasts is really interesting. It's just that since that happened, games tried to play scale big time, right? Like God of War in particular was like, I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. All right, all right, all right. They're like, but what if we made it fun? You're like, okay, and brainless, like that's like honestly what it was like. It was like, ooh, let's make it fun and brainless. We'll have a good time. And they were right. Last Guardian is just a little jank. Unfortunately, and we waited so long for that game. It just was overhyped in the end,
I'm
Um,
shocked it even came out, truth be told. I
honestly.
genuinely thought that would just get dropped eventually, kind of thing.
Mhm. And it's not broken. Like don't get me wrong. Like it's a game. It's a fully playable game. It's just um, it just feels a little janky at times. But yeah, I just wish, I don't know why they just don't connect with me. I know for some people they're like such hugely important games, but I guess that's also the thing. They're very, like, I hate to use the word artsy, but like they're sort of unique takes. And so if you don't like, there's just a higher chance that some people aren't going to vibe with that, you know?
I mean, the weird thing with I can't speak to The Last Guardian because I haven't played that, but I completed the PS3 ports of the other two.
Mm.
The weird thing always seemed to be that they were lauded for their narrative, and I
Which they
actually
don't really.
didn't really think there was much of one. Like, I get that
Hmm.
there's subtext, there's things that are kind of shown but completely untold.
Hmm.
Um, I just thought the narrative was weak and the gameplay was weak, and so
Yeah.
what do you have at the end of it?
It's not much. I know. And see, I
Mm.
think the thing is that at the time, subtlety was like, let's be real. PS3 era, games doing subtlety.
Well, PS2 era, because that's where they actually came.
Oh yeah, even better. PS2 era, right? Like I think at the
Yeah,
time it was such a like, what? This game doesn't try to like bear down its entire story on you, and it's sort of
console players especially. Yeah.
right. And so I think that kind of like that context is sort of needed a bit. But like you said, as we play now, it's like, well, games have learned lessons from these games, I think, and sort of implemented them probably better and more interestingly, as time's gone along. And so it's like they're just not as maybe unique as they were once, Um,
Mm.
but anyway, didn't connect with me. And then the other one too. So there's two: the Wario Land 4 and like the Wario Land series in general. I don't know why. These are games that should be right up my alley. I love these platformers. I love this sort of thing. And like, I just I just bounce off them every time. And I'm like, I don't know what it is about it. Like maybe it's the having to run back through the level thing. Like, I don't know. It just, for some reason, I can't connect with it. Maybe it's Wario's kind of bulkiness that I don't love. Like, I don't know. There's something about it. And like, they're good games, but they
They're
just,
mixed. They're
yeah,
very up and down.
that's fair. I really haven't played them enough to know if they're perfection or not. So,
Yeah, that's totally fair.
and the last one is Metroid Prime. I I should love these games. They're boring ass slogs. They're fucking boring, man. Like I'm sorry, and I'll get hate for this in some parts, but like, dude, the amount of where do I go in these games and like backtracking and oh, dude, I'm sure at the time they came out, I am certain at the time they came out, they were phenomenal, exciting, crazy, incredible things. But it's been a long time now. Metroid Prime, I hate to say it, is an old fucking game. Like I think, when did it come out? 2003. Okay, we were talking about a SNES game that came out in 1997. All right, this game is like almost 20 years old now. Holy shit, right? It's just 1 year
Man, I
away,
feel old.
right? What? Yeah.
Why would you say that? Why
What?
would you say that out loud, man?
It's getting there, man. It's getting there. So this is the thing where I'm just like, it's been a long time now, and it's okay, but I just could never get into it. Like I found when I played Metroid Prime, I was just like, it just felt slow and empty, you know. And I get it because it's a GameCube game, and there's only so much you can do on that. But it was just a lot of hallways, a lot of walking back and forth. Where am I supposed to go now? Okay, that's what I do. All right. I'm sure Prime 4 will be wonderful. But yeah, that crossing fingers. Actually, I'm not sure it'll be wonderful. Actually, I'm very concerned it won't be, but we'll see.
I mean, it can only be a good sign that they've started again.
Yeah.
I mean, that can only be a good thing at this stage. It can become a bad thing, but like, if it was so bad that they went back to the drawing board, I think that's always a better call than just trying to shit out whatever you had.
Right. And the thing is, like, obviously keep in mind, like, this is again me talking about games that I should have vibed with because they should be wonderful, and then I didn't. So I know there's a rabid fan base for these games because, you know, Metroid, but I do think too, like, the more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, it's a small group too, though, right? And I think these games found their niche, and for those who love them, they love them. And then everyone else bounces off pretty fast. I don't know. I like my Metrovanias fast and tight. That's not what this game is. Anyway, I'm done shitting on Metroid. And do you guys have any others that you missed there?
No, I don't think so.
Not that spring to mind. But if the listeners have any that they'd like to throw in, or if they'd like to excoriate us for our opinions on their favourite games, as always, they can. You can, because this is parasocial. You can. Talk to you specific. You can go and like, you can comment, share, all the things. Feed the algorithm. The algorithm's hungry. Give the algorithm dinner.
Tell us what you like, because the reality is, the best game in the world still won't appeal to some people. It's just how it is.
There are a couple people that have said like they're not super sold on 13 Sentinels, I guess, for him. But you know, the majority of people.
There's a game that should have gelled with me, but never did.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
That game's.
But play it on Switch. I feel like Switch is where you'd really vibe. I mean,
I can't play it again. The story.
You've already had your first shot, but yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, I do think that the big part of it is that I played it during the craziest heat wave. I was almost delirious throughout that week. My fiance would actually tell me, she was like, I remember talking to you sometimes that week. You sounded a little crazy sometimes. I was like, I felt crazy. So
the thing is, like, oh, sorry, go on.
I was gonna say I had heat exhaustion, I think so.
It's worth saying as well that game was developed initially for Vita, and they couldn't make that port work, whether it's technological, market factors, whatever. I feel like it being on Switch is very much full circle. And I'm looking forward to playing that game again in the future on Switch. So if anyone's listening, they haven't played it yet, by the sounds of it, Switch performance is excellent. I feel like Switch is absolutely the way to play that game.
I agree. I truly think had I played it on Switch, probably would enjoy it more. I also like, you have to keep in mind with the podcast, like when you're playing something in order to discuss, it changes your experience of it. Right? Like, because now you've got a bit of a timeline to get something done on. And it's like, you know, and I actually have to say, I feel like I have respect too for games journalists and reviewers and stuff. Like, because when you have to beat a game, it really does drastically alter your experience of that game, because it's a job at that point. Right. Which it's just the reality. All right. Shall we move on to our favorite? How long to beat the game? We're starting, like we said, a whole new round this time because Rick won the last one. And so Rick has generously agreed to start us off. So Paula and I...
What doozy it's going to be we're starting with. Ooh. Yeah, so no, go ahead. Let's tell everyone really quickly how this works for those of you who somehow missed season 1 of the new format. We take it in turns to host. I will randomly pick a game, and my wonderful co-hosts will pick what they think the main plus 100% times are for that game in secret. Each of those is worth 1 point each. I will then pick a bonus question, which in this instance I'm going to flag is going to be how many people have this coming game backlogged. That's worth a further 2 points, so 5 points each up for grabs maximum. And if we get a match, both people get a point. We're not being stingy. The game this week is quite a funny one, actually. Conception 2, Children of the Seven Stars.
Oh, I know this one.
Yeah,
know
it's an
this?
Atlas game.
Oh.
It's
Yeah, I know this
and it was
one.
on Vita, so immediately kind of elevated. The concept of this game, no pun intended, is that you are
This game is so stupid.
yeah, it's certainly
This looks like an
it's
anime
like a
fever
dungeon
dream.
crawler RPG thing, but like you develop your party, if I remember correctly, by having not relationships, but relationships with these like star children, and then you're like fighting with your
Oh,
offspring
fuck.
alongside you. It's a bit of a strange one, yeah. Now there was another game a little bit like it on Vita, but without the smut, with like Sumi art style that I can't remember the name of, but like actually looked incredible, and I ended up buying a physical run of because they reprinted it very late in the Vita's life. This is like the Atlas Uwui anime version of that. I think it did get ported to PC and a couple of other things, but it started out on Vita. I think the original got like a remaster for some inexplicable reason as well. But yes, Conception 2, Children of the Seven Stars. If you can both privately message me your main plus 100%. And I would also like to know how many people you think have this game backlogged on howlongtobeat.com.
Backlogged. Okay, I like that idea.
Mhm.
I don't know on this one. This might be an all you one, Paula.
I don't know because I know the game. I remember reading the times, but I don't remember jack shit about it.
Yeah, I feel like I'd be exactly in that position if this was me. I'd be like, I know that game. I don't know anything about it, but I know it.
I know absolutely nothing about it, so like I'm assuming just based on yeah, okay, I've got some ideas, but I don't know. I don't fucking know.
While you two are working it out, just for the benefit of the audience at home, I'm going to read out the description on the website because it's fucking amazing. Conception 2, Children of the Seven Stars, a unique dungeon exploring RPG with school life elements. In the world called Terra, where the star god is worshipped, monsters have begun to form from the mysterious labyrinth. However, the star god has imbued certain young adults, disciples, with the power to fight monsters as well as create star children to aid in the battle. Only disciples and star children can defeat their monsters, and you, as God's gift, have an additional waiting task to bond with 7 other disciples and bear many star children to help your world survive.
All right, I made my guesses. I don't know.
This one is a weird one.
Yeah, this is a toss up for me. I could get lucky, could not.
Yep, so I have all the things from Alec.
Oh.
I now need all the things from you, Paula. No pressure.
But lots of pressure.
I just love that the player characters
Yep.
God's gift. That's just
God's gift. That is pretty funny. Yeah. Yeah, this does not sound like a game that I'm going to play.
yeah, no, me neither.
A little too uwu for me.
Oh man, I have
Yeah,
downloaded that.
let me
game.
find the chat and I will send you the times. Just oh my God. It was people who had the game backlog, right?
Yes, how many people have this game backlogged on?
Yeah,
the site?
I just checked now, and I definitely failed all this. I think I did okay actually for part
how
of
many
it.
people are playing it, but it's a grand total of 1, and I thought that was a bit of a.
Yeah, I fucked this one up big time. I mean, I think I did good on times, but I fucked everything else up. Oh god.
Or is he just trying to finesse you, Paula? This is
Yeah, maybe I am.
The 100% is so weird because I know how many characters the game has, but I don't know if 100%. It probably should be like
submit.
Okay.
Putting the pressure on. I just don't want her to think too much. No thinking.
That said, while you are thinking, I should let you know, I ordered those Profound Waste of Time magazines.
Nice.
I mean, not nice is that there is no free shipping within the UK, which would have been cool. I ended up paying like £8 for that, but
that's
they're
better than
on
what
their
I
way.
paid. So. Good. Oh man,
yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah.
The Region Lock books on Amazon as well. I'm not sure.
I sent it to Rick, right? Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine if you'd sent. To be fair, Alex already sent his, so it wouldn't be the end of the world. I do have both.
Mhm.
So that is all good. Ooh,
right.
some interesting situations here. So
Mm.
let's have a look. So main story. Alex has put 35 hours. Paula's
Mhm.
put 40 hours. The time is
Oh.
41 and a half hours. So that's
Oh,
first point. That's first blood for
Yes.
Paula.
damn.
Main plus.
Mhm.
Paula has put 55.
Mhm.
Alex has put 40. The actual time is 50 hours. So point number 2 for
Oh,
Paula.
I fucked this up. Yeah.
100%. Alex has put 60 hours. Paula has put 70. The actual time is 62 and a half.
Cool.
So
I got one at
2-1 to
least.
Alex. Going into the bonus question now. How many people have this game backlogged on
I'm
the
pretty
site?
sure Paula got this one, but let's see.
Alex said 50.
Yeah.
The actual number
Well, what did Paula say?
is
Hold on.
434. Paula guessed 15.
Oh shit!
What?
Oh,
454?
hell yeah!
434 people have this
Hello.
dead ass game on their backlog.
Damn. All right, so I got 3
Shame on
points.
all 434 of you, but not shame on Alex, who snatched the
Yeah.
victory with 3
Yeah.
points to 2 in the first round of
Dang.
this.
Okay. I
I
thought I
wasn't
was.
expecting that much.
Neither was
Do
I.
you know what? I genuinely thought you would have put higher. I think the same as Alex when he saw the number, he's like, Paula's probably going to get this.
I thought she. Yeah. I honestly. I don't know. But then again, I guess. Yeah. I was trying to play it safe because I was like, I don't know how many could possibly have this backlogged. But I guess this must be a fairly popular game then, or at least a game that people aspiringly want to beat.
I think it's an Atlas RPG. I think that's the long and the short of it.
Right,
But
I forgot
I also
that.
think if
Yeah.
I'd been in your shoes and been asked that question, I probably would have stuck to double digits somewhere as well. I don't know if I would have gone into
Yeah.
triple digits.
No.
So yeah,
That's a good one.
that is a good one, and
Yep.
it's a good start to the new run of How Long to Beat the Game, neck and neck.
Mm-hmm.
Alex and Paula going into next week.
Yeah, which will be my hosting, and then Rick, you'll have a chance to come
Get on
up
the
and
board.
see how far we get. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next week.